everybody. So, fascinating time we're living in. This coronavirus kicked off, and most of us are all in our rooms at home, wondering what's going to come after this. Well, hopefully we're not going to get this, but then what's going to come after this? Because we know that economies are going to be closed down all over the world for months. People will not have that much money. And how quickly will it recover is questionable, because everybody's going to need to be saving once they start working again. So, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are the powers in control going to do? Yeah, because there's some talk whether this has been engineered, and whether this virus is being used as an excuse to enforce powers and create new laws. And I would be doubtful initially, but I am hearing from different sources, different spokespeople, that there's going to be a need for corporates and businesses to fix this on a global level. So there's definitely that talk happening as well. So the reservations about what's really going on are not entirely misfounded. Which brings us back to the question of, what do we do? Well, the way I am seeing it is that before Corona, our way of life was not sustainable. And that 1%, the City of London people and people like that, they have a question, and they have a problem. I mean, we couldn't continue as we would under Corona, before Corona, and we certainly don't want to continue like that again after Corona. So, that's the question I think that the 1% are having to deal with and tackle with. And we have like these 3 months to give our input to this decision making. Now, a lot of people in this country, in the UK, we're quite dependent on the National Health Service, and we look to the National Health Service for solving all our medical needs, all our medical problems and shortcomings and short-sightedness. So, that is unsustainable. That was unsustainable before Corona, and Corona is demonstrating that if something serious happen, then we wouldn't even have the resources to help most of the people in the world. Because this Corona is I'm not sure it's really that big a virus. There could be a bigger one coming. And if it did, a lot of people would die unnecessarily. So, what do we do? It would seem the best thing for us to do would be to take more responsibility for our health. Last year I came across a painting, and And the lady was saying, who got it? How she loved it so much. And on it, it was said, there is no freedom without responsibility. No freedom without responsibility. Do I need to explain that? I could. I probably do, because most people don't understand it. So, if we are not responsible for things, then things start just falling apart. And the only way for them to not fall apart is for us to become responsible for them and take care of them. And that has to be done on our own initiative, our own will. And that is where our freedom comes in. When we are able to exercise our will to sustain things, effect change, transform things positively, and then we are free. I mean, we're doing those things, those responsible things, freely of our own accord, and with awareness, happily. So, freedom. With freedom, there is a need for responsibility. And that's the situation very much with the National Health Service. As long as we see ourselves as being dependent on the National Health Service, and we don't take responsibility for our own sicknesses and diseases, we will continue to be filling up the hospitals and requiring their services. There are exceptional circumstances where people do really need doctors, and there are accidental things that happen. But we do know that 80-90% of the diseases begin with nutrition, based around our digestive system. 80-90%, which means by taking care of our nutrition, we could alleviate the health services of a lot of work and costs and lives. In this case, in the case of Corona happening right now, there are doctors and nurses dying. Is that fair? I'm not going to say, but it's something you need to ask yourself. Ask your loved ones, your family, before suggesting they all take responsibility for their health. Now, what does that mean, taking responsibility for your health? So, I can tell you my story, how I became responsible for my health, and how I've seen very little sickness or disease, and I was relieved of various sicknesses and diseases. I had eczema, I had asthma, and I had hay fever, and those conditions cleared up as I was addressing my nutrition and diet. This was entirely with nutrition. I hadn't even got into exercise yet, and purely with nutrition. So there's a lot that can be done just with food. And let's see, this would be about 15 years ago I sort of began on this journey. And it began when I started changing my diet. I was vegetarian for a while, Wasn't working out, so I went vegan. And vegan was good. And then I tried to make it better and better. It was around a time when there were a lot of enthusiasm for like serious whole food. There was a lot of backlash against all the processed foods that are happening, that were in the market. And yeah, it's turned out, there was a lot of demand for organic food, but it wasn't really affordable. Still isn't really, which is why the whole organic thing kind of simmered away, because the amount of pressure we're under, it's quite hard to maintain organic. But I would say, I think it should be everybody's birthright to be able to have organic food every day of their life. And we should be aiming for food systems towards that. So, yeah, it began with me taking serious control of my diet. I went vegan and had more organic food. I had I had a stepdaughter at that time, and she was very young, and we understood like how affected she was by artificial colors and flavors in her sweets. She would have tantrums, she'd become very emotional, so we decided to completely change her food, her diet, and remove all those things. And it was absolutely wonderful how she managed to regain a calm and a mental discipline and clarity. It was hard. She would habitually sort of go into it, but then she could find her way back, which was fantastic. And she's grown into becoming a wonderful person now. She was wonderful then. And so it was about having more plant food. It was about removing the chemicals from foods as well. And around that time, I was advocating veganism, and there was hardly anybody had heard of vegan, and it was a time when the National Health Service was saying that you couldn't live on a fully plant-based diet. So it was making so much sense to me. I thought I would do my own research and understand and discover like what the body needs, and can that all be found in plants. And it's fairly conclusive now. Yes, NHS completely acknowledges it, and that's because after your macronutrients of carbohydrates, proteins and fats, you're looking at micronutrients for great health, and the micronutrients you're going to get is from plants. So it doesn't, there is no way like you're going to be able to be living healthier on a full meat diet or omnivorous diet than on a plant-based diet. And then after that, I went and studied further about digestion and food, and it's been a continuous thing because the science keeps moving on, and even in Corona, it's like there's some new understanding that has emerged, but I'll maybe do that in another video. Yeah, I've completely lost my train of thought here. So it became about removing toxins from food, and then getting onto the gut. And then, beyond just understanding the nutrients that were required, I was beginning to understand further the process through which we absorb nutrients. And I became fascinated with gut health and the value and the role bacteria plays in our gut. Like, I discovered that there's more bacteria living in our gut than we have human cells. We are more bacteria than we are human. Incredible, isn't it? And I understood that we have, there are two predominant types of bacteria living in our gut. Those for breaking down plants and those for breaking down meat. Now, if we are having more meat, then we have to have more bacteria to break down the meat. However, we're not getting the extra nutrients because those bonus nutrients are coming from plants. And by switching to like a completely plant-based diet, we get to have our gut more filled with bacteria for processing plants, and that is how we can get better nutrition into our bodies. Now, there's also some other concerns about bacteria, about how it affects our mental health, because all this bacteria is alive, and it has been understood that they do contribute to our mental desires and wants and needs. And so if you're having trouble with leaving the meat behind, it may be because you're just still carrying a lot of meat-based bacteria that's crying out for meat. So they will pass, and your body will love you and appreciate you for taking the full plant direction, and you'll be living a happier life. But that was that was a fascinating revelation of gut health. It's incredible how we're still discovering things and learning things about ourselves in science and in many ways. I very much believe that we're transitioning to another paradigm of understanding about our body health, about understanding what we are as beings. There's a new paradigm coming. But then my concern for this whole video is, what is that going to be? What is that new paradigm going to be? Is it going to be one where we're going to be need to be further controlled because we're irresponsible? Or is it one filled with freedom because we're more responsible? And that's really what I want to say. That there is a future ahead of us, and there's going to be a paradigm shift, and it's not guaranteed by any measure what this new paradigm is going to be. So I'm not jumping up in joy that the system has stopped, because we're not out of the woods yet. It does require a lot of us to become responsible. Okay, so if you made it to the end of the video, I thought I'd add a short little thing for you guys here, in case any of you are still very concerned about your health. I mean, your immune system and your health is really important, and it would seem that if your immune system is weak, challenged, you will have problems. As I understand, this virus leads to pneumonia, which is the production of fluid in the lungs, leading them to be clogged up, leading you to not be able to breathe, and possibly dying by drowning through flooding in your lungs. I have to advocate yet again, and I did the research on it, pineapple. A true friend to our health, to clear our digestive system, and also to affect viruses and harmful bacteria. There's a very special chemical in pineapples called bromelain, and simply on contact with bromelain, these bad bacteria and viruses, they break down. It was tested with HIV and some other diseases, but I do remember that one of them was pneumonia. And pineapple is also great for emptying the lungs of fluid. And there you have it. Nobody said it yet. But like, if you are truly concerned about your lungs and wanting to keep them healthy, have some pineapple. And if you need to like release the fluid, release it, don't swallow it. Yes, and that's all. If you watched this far, great, thank you. I mean, I'm only here to try and help as much as I can, as much, anybody who wants to move forward. So yeah, if you like the video, if you are interested in other people moving forward with you, then yeah, share. I will be producing more videos, helpful in any way I can be. Thank you.